Hey, what's up, Ninth Age? This is Obsidian Anubis, and I'm finally back with another Ninth Age battle report. I know it's been a while. Life's been pretty crazy out here, so I haven't had a lot of time to get any battles in, but I finally did manage to get some pictures taken. This is at the OFCC, the Pacific Northwest tournament up here in Vancouver, Washington. That was 2 weekends ago, so the second to last weekend in July, and so I went up and played some battles. I took my Empire of Sonnstahl, which I had dubbed the 13th Border Army because it consisted of the unlucky 13th cohort. And my first game saw me against Vermin Swarm. So my opponent has a Dread Mule on the far left behind those buildings which we just use as impassable terrain, and some footpaths, a catapult, a unit of Vermin Guard, and then behind them another unit of footpaths. In that decrepit forest is one of the two markers, so that's it was claim the ground, capture the hill, king of the hill. We have to put a marker on a piece of terrain that's not fully in your deployment zone and capture it by the end of the game. So that was his. Farther right, he had a group of slaves. In the slaves, he had a meat grinder, a BSB. I believe he also had a magister, and then I think the Vermin Guard had the tyrant with the doom blade. To the right of them is a group of 6 Giselles, I believe, and then in cannon, 6 more Giselles, a Vermin Hulk. Those should be Vermin Hulks, not Vermin Lord. One of them has been upgraded to have the uh, gun with it, whatever that's called, the rotary gun. And then on the far right is another Dread Mill. So for my list, on the far right, I have my Ghost Shadows. Those are 5 readers with heavy armor and brace pistols. And then kind of behind that forest, I have the Hastia, which is 10 militia with skirmishing. Behind them are the Brothers of Uller, which are 24 flagellants with a champion. Yep. And then to the left of the building are my Guardians of Uller, the 28 Imperial Guard with great weapons, full command, and they have the household standard. And then on the left side, I have a detachment of the 13th Cohort Auxiliary, which is 15 light infantry with a musician, banner, and they have the banner of the marksman pennant. Then to the left of them is the unlucky 13th cohort itself, which is 40 heavy infantry with halberds, full command, and the banner of unity. With them is my BSB. He is a marshal with the Winter's Cloak. He's a great tactician, and he has a shield. And then behind all of them, I have my wizard. He is a wizard of divination, master. He has light armor and the alchemist alloy, arcane engine of foresight, magical heirloom, and talisman of shielding. I forgot to say my general is also in that unit of great Imperial Guard. He's a prelate with plate armor with the Imperial seal, lucky charm, and a great weapon. And then to the left of the unlucky 13th cohort is another 13th cohort auxiliary, which is 20 heavy infantry with musician and banner. And then behind them I have another block of 23 flagellants. Alright, so for the deployment, this one I believe it was the attacker defenders, and I was the defender, so I bulged in the middle. My opponent was the defender. I think I placed my entire army first, so I got to go first. So 13th Border Army, turn 1. So I moved up fairly aggressively in the center. He had more shooting than me, so I believe for the orders I gave the extra march move for the 2 units of for the Great Weapon Imperial Guard, and then for the unlucky 13th. And then I kind of moved my chariot around, thinking about maybe going behind the building for cover, but ended up just kind of going more to the center of the board after this. For my first magic phase, I managed to get power card number 2, and I don't remember what spells, if anything, I got off. So that brings us to Vermin Swarm turn 1. You can see my opponent moved up only a little bit. I didn't actually move up all that aggressively. I kept my readers pretty far out because I didn't want him shooting at them with the Dread Mule. I didn't mind if he shot some of my archers, which it looks like he killed one of them because one of them is missing at this point. Yeah, and unfortunately, because this was a tournament, I didn't take a whole lot of pictures, so we'll have to bear with me through the pictures. All right. So you can also see that this crater, which we played as I think ruins or possibly fields, it has a gravestone in it. That is my secondary objective for King of the Hill. So this is 13th Border Army turn 2. You can see I made a long charge with my halberdiers into the Vermin Guard, and then my auxiliary kind of moved up. That flag in the center with the card, that is my opponent's comet that he got on his turn, which has not yet come down. You can see on the far left, I have 5 actually knights, which I missed going through the introduction. Those are the pale knights. Those are just 5 electoral cavalry with musician, knightly order, and cavalry hammers. They didn't want anything to do with the dreadmill, so they started heading over here to the right. My opponent did have 2 units of the gutter blades, and one of them had popped up behind my crossbowmen, so I wanted to kind of move them over and maybe use them to get rid of the stalkers or the gunner blades. Alright, so in combat, it was just kind of a push. I did some wounds to him. He did some wounds back to me. I got multiple buff spells off, as you can see on this with the cards in this picture, but I wasn't able to break my opponent, unfortunately. So on my opponent's turn, he charged and flanked my unlucky 13th cohort, and that's pretty much going to be the title, the unlucky 13th. Yeah, and then over here on the right, my opponent kind of moved up and shot again. We both kind of hesitated on the right flank. I didn't really want to get in close range so he could destroy my shooting, and he didn't really want to move too much so my flagellants could get to him. And there's just another picture of the right flank. All right, so this is the left flank pre-combat. So you can see that I lost one of my knights on the far left. That was shot by the other Doom Dreadmill. You can see I've lost a couple of my swordsmen from just the footpaths. And then you can see that there's going to be quite a bit of losses there in the center with the Vermin Guard and the slaves. My opponent didn't manage to get off a couple of spells, so I don't know. I think I might be flammable, and he has flaming attacks now. I don't remember exactly. That might have been a different game. Either way, he basically butchered the halberdiers down to, looks like, 8 men. He had the Tyrant with the Doomblade, so the Doomblade character just killed my BSB. So my BSB is dead at the moment, which is unfortunate. I fled, but I was unable to get caught, so that's good. So maybe I have a chance of rallying, maybe. You can see the slaves kind of just moved up to kind of block my Imperial Guard. So on my turn 3, I charged my Imperial Guard into the front of the slaves, kind of just moved my chariot up behind it. I also charged the flank of the Vermin Guard with my heavy infantry, and I was going to do that battle first and hopefully break them from the Vermin Guard from combat, so that way I can run to the side of the slaves and break those steadfast and then easily destroy them. That was the plan. We'll see how it works out. I also you can see I turned my crossbowmen around so they were facing the bottom of the board. That's because, like I said, my opponent had some gutter blades that had ambushed on and were shooting at me from the rear. Alright, so this is what it looks like. So yeah, I also did manage to rally my halberdiers, my unlucky 13th cohort, so that's good. So, my 8 remaining figures are still there. They did rally on half leadership. And then my opponent's comet came down. Looks like, I think it had 1 wound on my chariot. It killed 5 or 6 of my great swords, my Imperial Guard. It killed 4 of my halberdiers, and I believe my flagellants lost 2. And then I lost quite a few from my crossbowmen as well. It came down and did a pretty big explosion, so it was pretty deadly. It did happen to hit, I believe, my opponent's Vermin Guard, so they did lose a few as well. This is actually after combat. This is after combat on my turn, sorry. So unfortunately, my flank charge into the Vermin Guard did not break them. They still did hold, so I did not get that flank charge into the slaves, unfortunately. I did manage to kill the meat grinder, but we went Simo, so it managed to kill about 6 of my Imperial Guard at the same time. So I'm losing Imperial Guard pretty fast without doing a whole lot of damage. So in my opponent's turn 3, this is actually after combat, you can see my opponent charged the footpaths into the flank of my auxiliary unit that was fighting the Vermin Guard in the flank. They broke them from combat and chased them down. The Vermin Guard then ran into my rallied unlucky 13th cohort, and then you can see on the right side with the slaves that I've killed off maybe 10 or so slaves, but I also lost a handful of Imperial Guard. You also notice that there's a big, chariot missing. Yeah, so my chariot was blown up on this turn. I'm actually surprised how long it did manage to survive with how much shooting my opponent had. His first couple of turns, he misfired 2 or 3 times with both of his artillery pieces. So my chariot was actually doing pretty good, and then this turn it just took massive hits and blew up. You can also see that my crossbowmen are now down to just 3 of them. They've only managed to kill 1 of the Gutto Blades in return, so they are losing that fight. The unit of knights, which I had down here, unfortunately got shot by the Dreadmill on the left flank and fled away. On the right side, the Dreadmill, I think, shot and basically destroyed the Readers, although I still have my militia up there, which are kind of skirmishing away. And then I have my second block of Flagellants moving in across the water. I believe they actually attempted a charge into the Vermin Hulks, but failed. On the left side, you also see that I did charge my other unit of Flagellants into my opponent's Vermin Guard, aligning them so that when they overrun, they'll overrun into the footpads, as those are scoring units. So after combat, I managed to wipe out the Vermin Guard, and before I could actually overrun or anything, my opponent's footpads actually fled from combat and fled from the unit that was destroyed, and they panicked the other footpads, so they all panicked and fled off the board. So that was beneficial. So I ended up just kind of turning to face my opponent's flank over here. You can see that I only have 2 Imperial Guard left with my character. Yeah, they are not doing so good. My opponent did move up the Vermin Hulks to protect the flank from my second unit of Flagellants on the right here, which you can see are being shot to pieces. So on my turn, yeah, so I charged the left unit of Flagellants into the flank of the slaves. This is where I attempted to charge the Flagellants into the Vermin Hulks and failed and ended up losing a third of them, or 5 or 6 to dangerous terrain because of the water. You see the unit of slaves on the top center of this picture. So they broke from my Flagellants, but they did manage to get away, so they fled there. My Imperial Guard and my general actually turned to head towards the forest, because that's where the objective was. And then you can see my one lonely knight who managed to rally before he gets shot up on my opponent's turn. So this picture is actually the last picture of the game. So the red star on the far left, that marks my Imperial Guard in general. Between my opponent's cannon, catapult, and doom wheels, he managed to destroy the unit and the character. He also shot my remaining crossbowmen up and my remaining knights. They all died. So all I have left right now are what looks like 5 Flagellants and my 1 Flagellant priest character who's in combat with the Vermin Hulks, who has 2 wounds remaining. Unfortunately, my opponent did manage to rally the slaves with the BSB, and I think they also had the wizard in it too. So that would have been really nice if my opponent had failed that rally test, but unfortunately they did rally, so that kept quite a few points on the board. So it ended up being a 15-5 in favor of my opponent. However, I did manage to destroy all of my opponent's scoring units anywhere near the secondary objectives, so no one got the secondary objectives, so it was a 15-5. So not a bad first game. I would have preferred, better, but it was a slaughterfest, and honestly, I brought a very slaughterfest close combat army, so I had a great time just throwing dice and slaughtering my opponent and losing all my men in return. So it was a great battle. I really enjoyed it. Kudos to my opponent. He just fought a very good game, and yeah. So yeah, this is the first of 5. This was a 2-day tournament, so the other ones will be coming up shortly. But yeah, if you guys had any comments or anything you'd like to see, put those in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe, and keep gaming on.